The Seattle Seahawks were active, I would say, on day one of NFL free agency, but they weren't as active as I think some people would have wanted. Coming up on today's show, we are going to dive into all of the news around the Seattle Seahawks. Which players ended up leaving the Seahawks, and is that going to be something that is crucial and detrimental to this team? What players stayed with the Seattle Seahawks? And then we're going to end the show, of course, talking about why the Seahawks let some of these players leave. When we look at the players that left already, Coby Bryant, safety, he ends up signing with the Chicago Bears. Kenneth Walker, he was one of the first players to sign with a team in NFL free agency. He ended up going with the Kansas City Chiefs. Boye Mafe ended up in Cincinnati with the Bengals. Not a bad get for the Bengals, but was he worth the price? When we look at the players that are staying in Seattle, Jobe ended up signing a very team-friendly deal. Keeping one of your starting cornerbacks in Seattle was a must with both Riq Woolen and Jobe hitting free agency. Riq Woolen, at the time of this recording, still available. Could be very interesting there. And then the big news of the day was at the end, Rasheed Shaheed, he ended up re-signing with the Seattle Seahawks, and he decided to stay in Seattle, and I love that for him, and I love that for this squad. Now, when I look at NFL free agency day 2, I'm left wondering what could today bring. We know that John Schneider likes to be active during free agency, but he likes to go in and make a bunch of moves that people do not see coming. He goes out and he grabs guys that are more or less thrown away, thrown into the scrap heap by others that he says, hey, this deal is going to work for our team, and I'm going to be able to get the most out of this player. So what could day 2 bring? I think we could see some moves. Let me know if you trust John Schneider's plan by liking today's video. Hit that thumbs up button. It's free, doesn't cost anything. And if you trust the general manager who has brought 2 Super Bowl championships to the Seattle Seahawks, you're going to go in and hit that thumbs up button. Now, let's dive into the news. This is Seahawks Today. I am your host, Will Ortner. We're going to start with the bad news on today's video. I'm a big believer in when you have a very nice dinner, you got your steak, you got your mashed potatoes, you got your broccoli, you go, you hit the broccoli first because you get it out of the way, and then you can savor the rest of that meal. We're going to do that on today's episode. So we're going to start with the broccoli, a.k.a. the players who are leaving Seattle. Coby Bryant, he ends up going with the Chicago Bears. Kenneth Walker ends up with the Kansas City Chiefs, and Boye Mafe ends with the Bengals. We're going to talk about each one of their new contracts while also talking about my personal opinion on how it's going to affect the Seattle Seahawks, starting with the man up top, and that, of course, is safety Coby Bryant. He ends up signing a 3-year, $40 million deal that gets him just outside of the top 10 in safeties paid. He had been in Seattle since 2022, so the man's on his second contract. Had a very good season last year, really stepped up into a bigger role with Julian Love being injured for a good chunk of the season. And all I have to say to Coby Bryant is good job, man. You went out, you performed really well the last couple of years after you made the switch to safety. He's been absolutely fan-freaking-tastic, and he deserves this deal. I'm telling you right now, he deserves to go out and make as much money as possible. All of these players do. And I'm not going to sit here and fault Coby Bryant for not coming back to Seattle when he had an opportunity to make more money with the Bears. Now, it did feel like Coby Bryant was going to be a Seattle Seahawk based on what he was posting on Instagram and the way that a lot of the Seahawks were talking about him potentially returning with McDonald, because we all know McDonald really loves Coby Bryant in this defense. And it's unfortunate. You end up losing your starting safety. But at the end of the day, I do think that he made a good decision for him, and he made a good decision for his family. The next player we're going to look at is Kenneth Walker. Now, Kenneth Walker was probably like the second or third guy to sign with a team in NFL free agency. I look at the 3-year, $45 million deal with the Chiefs, almost $29 million guaranteed, and I say to myself, seems like a lot. That seems like a very expensive price tag for Kenneth Walker. And now I'll have time in this video where I dive into why I think it's a good move that the Seahawks didn't sign him. But I do think it's important to say, thanks, man. Thank you to Kenneth Walker. It was a fun journey that we had for the first 4 years of your career. And I appreciate everything that you did for this franchise and for this team. Helped us win a Super Bowl. Was the Super Bowl MVP. But I'll tell you right now, when you look at that price tag, that's not something that I'm willing to pay for Kenneth Walker. Last player that we're going to have to talk about is edge rusher Boye Mafe, and he ended up signing a deal with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think I've been pretty clear on this channel. I did not expect Boye Mafe to be returning to the Seahawks. I thought that no one, maybe Kenneth Walker, but no one other than Kenneth Walker has hit free agency at a better time in their career. Boye Mafe signs a 3-year, $60 million deal. That's going to get him $20 million a year. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to pay that for our fourth edge rusher. It just doesn't make sense. When you are looking at how the Seahawks team is built, it's built on depth and having good quality pieces. And I'm not saying that Boye Mafe isn't a good quality piece. And I'm not saying that this team is going to be completely fine and not falter at all without him. But I'll tell you right now, it does feel like Seattle just was never going to bring him back. Now, there's obviously a lot of talk that the Seahawks wanted to keep Coby Bryant and keep Kenneth Walker. So it felt like some people might not have necessarily said their goodbyes, which is why I do want to ask you this. How do you feel about the Seahawks losing Coby Bryant and Kenneth Walker? Let me know down below in the comment section. If you want to add in with Boye Mafe and how you believe his loss is going to affect the Seahawks, you can. But I don't feel like any of us really came into free agency expecting Boye Mafe to return to the Seattle Seahawks. I think most of us had already kind of said our goodbyes. Next, we're going to talk about the good news, though, for the 12s and who is going to return to the Seattle Seahawks, who is going to stay in Seattle, but more importantly, why I believe that John Schneider made the decisions that he did and why they're eventually going to end up being good decisions for the Seattle Seahawks. But first, I got to let you know about our good friends over at Prize Picks because they are the sponsor of today's video. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on any 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all your favorite sports, anything from basketball, baseball, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, esports, and more. New feature alert! Prize Picks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. My lineup for the action going on later on tonight. I've got Cooper Flagg, more on his rebounds and assists. Luka, more on his points. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Shout out to Prize Picks. So those guys who are staying in Seattle, Josh Jobe and receiver Rasheed Shaheed. Now, I think that both of these guys ended up signing good deals that are going to keep the Seahawks whole, mainly on the defensive end here, which is where we are going to start. Josh Jobe ends up re-signing with the Seattle Seahawks for a deal that I think is absolutely fantastic. Jobe is going to get a 3-year, $24 million deal, so he's going to get paid the way that he wants, but it did feel like that Jobe had an opportunity to potentially make even more in free agency. The fact that he's only going to get $8 million per year feels like a deal that is a great signing, in my personal opinion. You're getting your number 2 corner, and you're getting him for $8 million a year when a guy like Greg Newsome, who has been very spotty in his NFL career, he literally just signed right before we were recording with the New York Giants on a 1-year, $10 million deal. Now, I'll tell you right now, the stats, they look pretty damn similar, and the Seahawks are getting Jobe back for $2 million less a year. Plus, we already know he fits into this scheme, into this system. This deal is going to look better and better year by year. Next, we're looking at Rasheed Shaheed. He ends up agreeing to a 3-year, $51 million contract with the Seattle Seahawks, $34.7 million guaranteed. Now, I understand that some might say that value is a little bit higher than they may have wanted or may have expected the Seahawks to sign. But I'm telling you right now, you had to bring him back. First of all, I think that wide receiver position is a little bit more valuable at times than running back. But what Shaheed can do when it comes to the kick return game, running back kickoffs, as well as punt returns, there's no one better in the game than him right now. And that's just going to bump up his value. The Seahawks had to make a decision. Do you end up paying Kenneth Walker close to $50 million, or do you end up paying Rasheed Shaheed close to $50 million? And it was super easy. You end up having to pay Rasheed Shaheed because he's earned that. The other version and the other reason why you have to pay him is because you traded all those draft picks away. That is something that you are going to have to make sure that you remedy. And that's what the Seahawks did. You could not let a player like Rasheed Shaheed go. He's only going to add into this offense. And I really do believe, and I know I keep hammering this, that he is about to be unlocked. We are going to see what he can truly be as a wide receiver, and we'll see it next year in Brian Fleury's offense. My personal opinion, John Schneider is making great decisions right now. And I know there are a lot of Seahawks fans early on in the day that were saying he was being cheap, he wasn't making the correct moves. But the more and more that I look at the signings and the more and more that I look at the decisions that Schneider has made, the more and more I agree with him. He's making financially sound decisions that does not break the bank for the Seahawks. It allows them to be flexible to make other moves because you have to remember the Seahawks are going to make some big free agent signings, but they are going to extend Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith and Jigba at some point this offseason, and they are going to need money set aside to make sure that they can extend those two players. But the most important thing at the end of the day is he's, for the most part, kept this team together. You're losing one starter on offense. You're losing one starter relatively on defense. You're bringing Jobe back. He's going to be your cornerback too. He rotated in that starting position. So the only guy on defense you're losing is Coby Bryant, and Ty Okada started 11 games last year. On the offensive side of the football, you're losing Kenneth Walker. That's a big loss. You're going to have to go find a running back somewhere, whether that's free agency or in the NFL draft. But I'll tell you right now, if you're going to return 10 of 11 starters on defense and on offense, so 20 of your 22 starters, feel pretty darn good about that. You might be noticing I've got a new t-shirt on today. It's the Seahawks Today t-shirt. Only $24.99. Go grab yourself one. It is so fresh, so comfortable. It is tight on the arms, but loose on the belly. We've got in the navy and in the black as well. Go grab yourself one today. Today is the final day. Go and grab that Seattle Drinking Team t-shirt. We've got it in the green as well as in the navy. It is Tuesday, March 10th. Go grab yours as fast as you can. $29.99. Same thing with the beer drinking hats. Only $24.99. You know I love some good headwear. Great hat. You'll love it. But I told you, it's the last day to go and get this if you want to have an opportunity for it to be ready by St. Patrick's Day. Go and click on the express shipping when you get the St. Patty's Day drinking hat and the drinking t-shirt. It'll only be $5. But if you want it to be there in time for St. Patty's Day, that's what you need to do. You got to do the express shipping, and you can only use the hats and the drinking team for that express shipping deal. The link for all of these items are going to be in the comment section and description of today's video. So go click on that link. It'll take you right where you need to go. Seattle has not overpaid for anyone, and I mentioned that early on. And I know that some people might try and come and say, hey, Will, it's actually an overpay for what the Seahawks paid for Rasheed Shaheed. But I'll tell you right now, I think that his ability in the return game, specifically punt returning and kick returning, makes him a little bit more possible to pay. It makes it easier for him to get a higher contract based on the output that he has on the field, because you're not just paying for a receiver or a receiver two. You're paying for a player that's going to be the best at their position, and actually technically he's the best at two positions because he's a kick returner and a punt returner. When we look at Kenneth Walker and his contract deal, I think personally, in my opinion, if you're going to put him in that number 4 spot, that is too expensive. He's going to make over $14 million a year. That's a top 5 running back salary. And in my opinion, he is not worth that price. Kenneth Walker is a very good running back. He's not a top 5 running back in the National Football League. And the way that the Seahawks want to use that running back position, it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of money at that spot. In my opinion, it was the right decision to move on from Kenneth Walker, and it was the right decision to save that money to go elsewhere. And it does kind of feel like maybe the Seahawks allocated some of those Kenneth Walker potential funds to go into Rasheed Shaheed. When we look at Coby Bryant, hell yeah, I'm excited that he went out and got paid. But when I look at the stat line right here from Coby Bryant to Ty Okada, they're not that different. Ty Okada is a little bit better of a tackler. Coby Bryant's a little bit better of a ball hawk. Ty Okada has 4 less starts than Coby Bryant. And the tackles are pretty damn similar. Now, if you told me that Ty Okada had the same amount of starts as Coby Bryant, I would believe that the stat lines are basically going to be the same. Few more TFLs, few more tackles for Ty Okada. Coby Bryant's going to have some more interceptions. So you're telling me that I'm going to get a Ty Okada for much less of a price to be my starting safety? I'm pretty okay with that. I understand that Coby Bryant, he was a great player for this team. He is a fantastic player in the National Football League. But in my opinion, Ty Okada, while slightly different, is just as good and just as valuable to this team. And because he's going to be making less money next year, he became a much higher priority for this squad. I think it ends up essentially being a wash, and I might even give Schneider the victory on this swap because Schneider keeps basically the same safety for a fraction of the price. And at the end of the day, price does matter for these things. We don't have unlimited funds. This isn't baseball. There's a salary cap. And when you have a salary cap, you have to be smart about where you allocate the money that you want to spend. And I think that John Schneider did an excellent job of understanding where to spend his money, and he spent his money correctly here. I'm happy Coby Bryant got paid, but I think that Ty Okada is going to be just as good. You lost one defensive starter, and the guy who's going to replace that defensive starter started in 11 games last season. So I feel pretty confident about where the Seahawks are at. I do want to take a quick look forward into day 2 of NFL free agency as it is getting underway right now. Obviously, it seems that the Seahawks are going to, at the very least, look at a potential free agent running back. I do think that this is important to note. There are a lot of people that are saying, well, the Seahawks are going to just target running back in the draft. That's great. I still think you need a veteran running back on this team. So right now when we look at some of the different running backs that are free agents, Isaiah Pacheco, Joe Mixon, Rachaad White, Brian Robinson Jr., and Najee Harris are all available. Brian Robinson Jr. does seem to be someone that a lot of Seahawks fans are clamoring for, and I would not hate that. Michael Carter, Austin Eckler. Eckler seems a bit old, but he does have a great haircut. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and Antonio Gibson are also all available. To me, I would think that Eckler, Chubb, and Hunt are a bit too old, but it is important to mention that the Seahawks clearly want a one-year running back. That seems to be something that's been put out there. They want an older guy who's essentially going to take over that Charbonnet role while he builds himself back up. It's important to mention that Cam Akers and Velus Jones are still actively signed with the Seahawks. So there is an opportunity there for the Seahawks to just say, hey, we already have those veterans on the roster. We're okay. Depth is going to be important to winning titles. The Seahawks have shown that this year and the year that they won the title with the Legion of Boom. As good as those team starters were, they were even better when it came to the depth that they had to compare to everyone else. And it's very clear that's what John Schneider wants to build this team around. He wants strong, elite depth. So I'm excited to see what moves he makes. Don't be shocked if there isn't a big splash. I would love Trey Hendrickson. I want the Seahawks to go after Trey Hendrickson. I don't know that they will. Like this video if you love the Seattle Seahawks just as much as I do. Show that you're a real 12 by hitting that thumbs up button. And of course, if this is your first time checking out Seahawks Today, make sure that you hit that sub button. We've got you covered on all of the news around your favorite team. The minute that there's breaking news, we got a video out for you. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video, and I cannot wait to see you next time.